Welcome to the deep dive. We are diving into a truly fascinating stack of sources today.
We really are.
We're sort of setting aside the standard English language textbook and looking at the incredible, often contradictory identities of the world's major English-speaking nations,
We're talking the UK, Ireland, the US, Canada,
Australia and New Zealand.
all of them. Exactly. And our mission today isn't just to, list a bunch of facts.
So,
It's to move beyond the easy stuff, the shared language, the obvious colonial history, and really understand the unique cultural touchstones
the bizarre historical moments.
and some of the surprisingly defining facts that make these nations just fiercely individual.
And what stands out immediately in these source materials is just how deeply rooted these countries are in historical symbols and figures that are, frankly, often contradictory.
Right, these aren't just modern states. They're defined by centuries of internal tension and, well, some really weird historical choices.
Identity is built on these symbols, and sometimes those symbols are just odd.
It's so true. If you want proof that history is stranger than fiction, you don't have to look much further than Scotland.
We have to open with this. Scotland's national animal is the unicorn.
The unicorn, not a lion or an eagle, a mythical creature.
Exactly. Not the proud lion of the English royal crest, but the unicorn.
Our sources note it was chosen way back in the 12th century.
And the reason why is just perfect. It was chosen precisely because it was believed to be powerful enough to defeat a lion in battle.
So it's a centuries-old declaration of independence, basically, just wrapped in mythology.
Absolutely. And if we need one more example of how unique local identity clashes with modern life, let's talk about Wales for a second.
Oh, this one is great.
So there is a legal requirement that every road sign must be bilingual. A few years ago, a sign writer needed the Welsh translation for road closed.
Right, so he sends an email.
He sends an email, gets a reply back in Welsh, and just assumes it's the correct translation.
And the reply actually said, "I'm out of office right now."
And that's what he printed on the sign. Road closed, I'm out of office right now.
I mean, that is the perfect introduction to the hilarious seriousness of national identity we're diving into today.
It really is.
Okay, let's unpack this history and geography, starting where the modern language really began, the British Isles.
The geography of the British Isles is complex and foundational to everything else. You start with the United Kingdom,
England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
all ruled by King Charles III. And England, as the historical heart, is the source of so many global exports. Not just the language.
But also modern football, or soccer, for some of you.
Right. And the world's very first underground train system. That started in London back in 1863. That kind of infrastructure, that dominance, it shaped urban planning everywhere.
But the immediate challenge to that English dominance lies right next door. You just step across that small stretch of water.
And you're in the Republic of Ireland, or Ayr?
Completely different. They have their own president, their own fierce independence, and their national symbols just scream that distinctness. Absolutely. The Republic of Ireland's national symbol is the harp.
The Brian Boru harp, specifically.
Exactly. And what's fascinating about that choice is that Ireland is the only country in the world to use a musical instrument as its official national emblem.
Which tells you so much about the importance of music, of storytelling, and that deep Celtic tradition in defining their soul.
For sure. And their story is just full of these historical ironies. We found a couple of classic Irish twists in the sources.
Okay.
First, the patron saint, St. Patrick, wasn't actually Irish.
No way.
He was born in Roman Britain. And maybe even more surprising, especially for our North American listeners, is that Halloween originated in Ireland.
From the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain.
That's the one. So the whole tradition of carving pumpkins and dressing up is a direct link to Ireland's pre-Christian past.
That's incredible. And we can't forget the specifics within the UK nations themselves. Wales, for instance.
Wales is defined by its defensiveness, you could say, and you can see it in the landscape. It has more castles per square mile than any other country on Earth.
That says a lot about its long, very contested history with England.
It really does.
And speaking of contested histories, we have to mention that fantastic, unpronounceable place name.
Oh, Lanfair Probelgwing Gulligurich, Rondra Bolanti Sleo Gogogar.
You said it. And we were told not to avoid it, so let's give it some context. It means St. Mary's Church in the hollow of the White Hazel near a rapid whirlpool, and the Church of St. Tacilio of the Red Cave.
And that name, it was deliberately made longer in the 19th century. It's basically a proud linguistic flex against
A
outsiders.
monument made of language.
It is. And the connection between the UK and Ireland stays complicated even in the industrial age. I mean, look at the Titanic.
A perfect example.
It was one of the biggest symbols of early 20th century tech, and it perfectly illustrates this interconnectedness. It was built in Belfast, which is in Northern Ireland.
Registered in Liverpool, England.
And crucially, it was owned by an American company. It wasn't just a British ship, it was a global venture. It really foreshadows the complex ownership structures we see today.
That detail really anchors it. And the historical giants who defined nationhood across these regions also show this foundational split. We can start with the writers.
Yes, because the language itself splintered. You have the towering influence of England's William Shakespeare.
Of course.
He didn't just write plays, he fundamentally shaped the English language. He's credited with inventing thousands of words and phrases we still use.
He kind of created the vernacular that tied that early British identity together.
He did, but then you contrast that with the sharp, elegant wit of Irish playwright Oscar Wilde,
Who used that same language as a tool for satire, for wordplay, often to gently criticize the rigid social structures Shakespeare helped define.
His genius was in dismantling polite society with perfect sentences.
And then there's the fierce lyrical power of the Welsh poet Dylan Thomas.
Do not go gentle into that good night.
Those lines of devastating emotional clarity. His focus was so intensely personal, so emotional. It just shows how the language developed in very different directions across the Isles.
It does. And moving to political leaders, we see this profound ideological split that really defines the U.S. experience.
Okay, so in England, you have Queen Elizabeth I.
Right. She ruled for 45 years, cementing this idea of an enduring monarchy that's tied to the national fate. Her power was centralized, symbolic.
But then you jump across the Atlantic to the U.S., where George Washington leads the revolution,
And after his victory, he explicitly refuses to be king.
he just walks away.
That decision to walk away from ultimate power is arguably the single most defining moment in U.S. political identity. It created a model that was fundamentally opposed to the British system.
And finally, you have the two titans who saved their countries during huge crises.
Abraham Lincoln in the U.S., who preserved the Union and ended slavery.
And Britain's Winston Churchill, whose wartime resolve and that famous instruction to never, never, never give up, steered the country through World War II.
They both represent this feels almost mythic determination that's just woven into their national psyche.
Okay, let's fast forward a bit, because here's where we see those deep historical influences showing up in modern global iconography. We're looking at contemporary figures now.
Exactly. And how they either embody or challenge that national image.
So, for instance, think about the British fixation on lineage and history.
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Right. A globally recognizable actor, not just for Sherlock or Doctor Strange. Our sources confirm he is a real descendant of King Richard III.
In a country that venerates its history, his success almost feels like a continuation of a royal narrative. It's wild.
And then you have those who use their platform to define a more modern image of their country.
Like Emma Watson.
Yeah. She's successfully transitioned from, a global acting star to being an active global fighter for women's rights at the UN.
She really embodies a modern British identity that is highly globalized and politically engaged.
And we have to give a nod to the Irish talent as well. Saoirse Ronan is a fantastic example of a modern, successful star whose identity is so tied to her heritage.
And let's just remind everyone that beautiful name is pronounced Saoirse.
Saoirse. And speaking of identity, Scotland's Karen Gillan, famous for Doctor Who and Guardians of the Galaxy.
She often brings that dry, self-deprecating Scottish wit to her roles, which subtly shapes how the world sees the Scottish character.
Definitely. And the global music powerhouses offer fantastic insights into that national entrepreneurial spirit.
You've got Adele, who represents this very specific kind of authentic, soul-driven, London-centric success.
She wrote her first album, 19, at the age of 19.
It's success built on pure emotional resonance.
In contrast, you look at the story of Taylor Swift.
Right, which speaks volumes about the American narrative of self-made success and, importantly, legal control.
She doesn't just write all her own songs. She famously and successfully re-recorded her albums.
A massive financial and legal undertaking.
All to seize ownership of her own work. That level of entrepreneurial, copyright-focused drive feels very specific to the U.S. cultural landscape.
It really does. And if you want a perfect example of a modern, non-American celebrity rejecting that pressure, You have to look at Australia's Ash Barty.
An amazing story.
She was the world #1 tennis player, but she retired young to pursue a simpler, non-pressured life at home.
It's such a compelling contrast to that win-at-all-costs mentality you often see projected globally.
Which brings us to pure dominance, personified by the U.S. athlete Serena Williams.
23 Grand Slam titles.
Her career is just a testament to the intensity and scale of American sporting achievement.
But if you want a true icon of Canadian sport, one that perfectly encapsulates their national obsession, it has to be the ice hockey legend Wayne Gretzky.
The great one.
His almost spiritual significance to Canada earned him the nickname, quite simply, the Great One. Nothing more needs to be said.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit and do a deeper analysis of how traditional symbols, traditional outfits, keep historical identity alive.
Even in the age of global media.
Yeah, this is where culture is literally woven into the cloth and where identity is sometimes even legally protected.
The Scottish kilt is a prime example. It's not just a skirt, it's a detailed historical garment.
Right. The tartan patterns are legally distinct. They represent specific clans.
And it's technically illegal to claim a tartan if you aren't part of that clan.
Yeah. And the kilt is worn with a sporran, that's the small pouch worn in front, and the scian,
which is a small ceremonial knife that was historically hidden in the sock.
Every single element signifies rank, clan, and history. It's all there.
And if you look to Ireland, the Aran sweater serves an almost equally profound symbolic purpose.
These thick wool sweaters from the Aran Islands have these intricate patterns. Cable diamond basket stitch.
And they historically represented a family's heritage. And often tragically, they were used to identify drowned fishermen whose features were, unrecognizable.
The design acted as a kind of pre-DNA identity card. Their global appeal just exploded after they were featured in Vogue in the 1950s.
That historical significance is incredible. But how much does that tradition survive today? I mean, surely young Irish people aren't relying on their sweater patterns for identification anymore.
No, but it's about heritage maintenance. Even if the original function has faded, the significance remains.
So wearing that pattern is a conscious act of connecting to that specific coastal heritage.
Exactly. And that same pride applies when we look at New Zealand, where the traditional Māori dress, the flax skirts called pupiu, and feather cloaks called korowai.
They have intricate woven designs that clearly indicate the wearer's rank and ancestry.
It's a living history, which is why the Māori language, Aotearoa, is legally official. It's protected.
The North American approach to traditional dress is markedly different, reflecting their newer history.
It is. The U.S. has no single official national costume, but the Stetson hat is highly symbolic.
Invented in 1865.
And it immediately became the symbol of the open frontier, of individualism, of that rugged spirit. It was a manufactured piece of iconography that rapidly defined the West.
And Canada follows a similar path.
Yeah, their most famous outfit, the Mountie uniform, that striking red jacket, is known worldwide.
But it's worn almost exclusively for ceremonies and parades, not for daily police work.
Right. It's more of a brand ambassador for Canadian politeness and order than a practical piece of clothing.
That's a great distinction. Inherited tradition versus manufactured iconography. Okay, let's wrap up this deep dive with a kind of lightning round of global oddities and fun facts.
The strange, unique laws and histories of the U.S., Canada, Australia, and New Zealand.
Let's do it.
Starting with the USA. Despite its global influence and the dominance of English, the U.S. actually has no official national language.
None. Defined in the Constitution or law.
Nope. English is dominant, of course, but not legally official. It reflects a historical reluctance to impose a national language on a nation of immigrants.
And here's a geography check that really challenges your perception of the U.S. scale. Alaska.
It is only 80 kilometers closer to Russia than it is to New York.
It truly spans hemispheres. And finally, a fact that is both bizarre and tragic. The Pentagon has twice as many bathrooms as it needs.
And that's because when it was built in the 1940s, racial segregation laws required separate facilities for white and black workers.
That physical infrastructure just illustrates how deeply ingrained institutional discrimination was in the federal government's own planning.
Moving north to Canada, more than 80% of the world's maple syrup comes from Quebec.
They are the global titans of sweetness.
They are. And on a whimsical note that truly encapsulates that Canadian image of kindness, Santa Claus has his own official Canadian postal code.
80H080H0H.
080H, you got it.
And on the opposite end of the seriousness scale, in Churchill, Manitoba, They don't have regular police patrols in certain seasons.
No, they have specialized polar bear patrols tasked with keeping the bears away from the town.
That is a unique level of civic responsibility.
Now, Australia, a land defined by its delightful, often challenging wildlife. The famous story has to be included.
They once went to war against emus in 1932.
And lost. The event is known as the Great Emu War, and the military had to retreat, defeated by large, fast-moving birds.
And the wildlife challenge continues. There are officially more kangaroos than people in Australia.
There are. And finally, their political identity is often defined by rivalry. Canberra was chosen as the capital.
Because Sydney and Melbourne couldn't agree on which city should host the seat of power.
So they just built a new, neutral capital inland to keep the peace.
Finally, New Zealand. This country holds the incredible distinction of being the first country in the world to give women the right to vote.
Way back in 1893, true pioneers of democracy.
And agriculturally, they follow that Irish model.
Yeah.
They have more sheep, about 25 million.
Than people, which is about 5 million.
And of course, in the world of sports, the national rugby team, the All Blacks, perform the spectacular ceremonial haka before matches.
Powerfully integrating Māori culture into their modern global identity, it's incredible to watch.
So we've taken the scenic route. We've gone through historical titans, surprising celebrity backstories, ancient outfits, and some truly bizarre cultural markers, from unicorns to emu wars.
We started by noticing that these nations were built on contradiction. But what does this massive collection of facts ultimately tell us?
I think it tells us that the English language is a shared vehicle, but the national identities are unique destinations. The key takeaway for you, the learner, is realizing that these English-speaking nations, despite that common tongue,
And being exposed to the same global media.
they have fiercely protected and defined their identities through unique local heritage.
Absolutely. Whether it's the specific Celtic knotwork on an Aran sweater defining Irish heritage, or the political decision of Washington to reject monarchy defining America.
Or the haka dance being such an integral part of New Zealand's modern global sports identity.
These traditions are essential defenses against cultural homogenization.
We've seen countries lean so heavily on tradition and local language,
Yeah.
from the Aran sweater defining Irish heritage to the legal requirement for the Māori language to be official in New Zealand.
So given the massive worldwide media influence of American and British English pop culture, how important are these deep historical outfits, rituals, and local languages like Irish Gaelic or Māori for these nations to maintain their unique sense of self in the 21st century?
Something for you to chew on.